keyword ranking strategies are you currently using? The entire goal for ranking is how many orders can we possibly get through that one specific search term. Now, I know there's a lot of talk in our space around like, oh, target like long tail search variations of the keyword and all that stuff. That does help. It's not going to have the most impact. So the most impact for any ranking keyword is going to be getting orders specifically through that search, getting a lot of orders. So we don't just want one, we want a lot. And also making sure that our click-through rate and our conversion rate are really high on those key terms. So I'll be honest with you, the biggest impact on ranking you can have is really by picking the right keywords. So if your question was, how do I figure out what keywords do I rank on? I would say like look for things that you can afford to spend a lot, i.e. you're not losing money, meaning ACoS isn't like so crazy high that you can't afford it. You want to look for things that you have really good conversion rates. Bonus points if you have good click-through rates here, but I would go for conversion rates over click-through rates. And then you just want to like put money towards that. Now, if you say, how do I rank on this specific keyword, then that question is a little bit different. And I'm just going to tell you like push volume. Now, what I recognize is that me saying, hey, push volume through a one specific search might mean that that's not super profitable. So that's where I'm saying like the real trick is going to lie in the actual targets that you select to rank on. Other things, some pro tips and some pro hacks are more advanced but can be helpful here, is if you have a specific search where it's like crazy expensive and you just don't really have the budget for it. Again, that goes back to keyword selection. Make sure you're selecting keywords where you can afford to spend that budget on it. But if we're on a specific keyword, you want to make sure that you're showing high enough in search that you can really get those good conversions and get those eyeballs on the product. But maybe you can't afford a ton of clicks because there's a lot of clicks and they're really expensive. And use the budget as sort of a lever to cap or meter how much money you are spending for that ranking play. Now, how effective that is going to be how many orders your market is making, and that's relative. So when I talk about trying to get a large amount of orders, it's relative to the other competition that is on that particular search page. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Ask Junglr. Cannot speak today. Hopefully I can keep it up. This is the time and the place for you to get answers to your most pressing Amazon advertising questions. So why do we talk about advertising here? That is because I am the co-founder of an Amazon ads agency where we manage all the way from complex catalogs, 50,000 SKUs or more, accounts with like multiple brands inside the account, supplements, baby, clothing, home goods, tactical and technical. That's another one that not many people think about. So like if you have a product that has like multiple products, but there's like different specs on that product, like another thing. So there's all of these nuances because in speaking to a ton of different brand managers as well as our own team, it's like you have universal strategies, right? Like we have our best practices. We have the things that we know typically work in accounts. And then every once in a while you're hit with a curveball and there's something that shouldn't actually be quote best practice, and yet it works very well for a specific product. Case in point, I was talking to a brand manager the other day and they're like, look, we're using a consulting agency that has like the typical, all right, you have these particular keywords and you find them using this, and then you look at search query performance reports and you have like your exact match, single keyword ranking, like hyper focus. They're in a highly giftable category. They're highly seasonal. They sell gift tags for like Christmas, right? Like you have limited time. You don't have time to find every single keyword across the sun. And so what he was saying, he's like, look, I've been leveraging auto and broad campaigns, and I know it's not technically what quote best practice tells me to do, and yet we're absolutely crushing it. We're super profitable. We're growing sales and our like ad costs are under control. And I'm like, yep, that is a strategy that actually works in your specific category. So again, that is what we bring to this show every single week. So I'm going to pull up the banner, but basically the format of this is you can drop whatever and any, like I'm talking any and every ad question into the chat on whatever streaming platform you are listening in on. I'm going to pull it up on screen and we will get into answering your questions. Again, if you have a specific question, if you can tell us like what category it's in, the specific issues that you're dealing with, or what specific questions that you have around your exact, like, are you selling a premium product? Like, can a premium brand make it on Amazon? Absolutely. Like, we have a premium brand. They sell like a clothing item, and they're like, look, we don't do discounts. We know we have a higher price point. We're trying to grow sales. And we literally took on that brand. They were told like, hey, you can't grow. They're flat year over year, struggling with that. And it's like, hey, look, we were told because we're premium, like there's just no upside. Like we were able to grow. We're now growing sales 20% year on year, which they'd been flatlined for a year at least, while eliminating ad costs just by having a much better, more intentional structure. So we have the expertise, which means we can give you the very specific questions or answers to your specific questions. So again, format of this, drop those into the chat, whichever platform you're streaming in on. I'll pull them up. Oh, goodness. This is a fantastic question. I'm not quite sure. I don't want to come across like I have like false humility, because I don't feel like it's false. Maybe it's just self-doubt, but I'll do my best into next level. Like there's always another level. There's always something to do. The question is, what was the main factor that took your agency to the next level? So this is talking more agency, less ads. There's a couple different factors. One, which has been the growth lever for me, is shows like this and content marketing. Now, my advice to anyone who's looking to do content marketing on their own, and these are things like there's so many like guiding principles. I listen to people in the space who like not our specific space, but like it's just in general about business growth, and I'm like, oh, I did that on accident. So the main one I would say in terms of like, you know, kind of growth or attracting brands is shows like this and sharing my expertise. But I would say, and my principle honestly is like, learn all the things, execute the things, figure out what works, give away everything I possibly can for free, which is literally what this show is about. Like, I have a ton of knowledge. Let me just give without expectation of return as long as I possibly can, as much as I possibly can. Like that's my growth strategy in terms of brand attraction. And I would say it's worked well for us. But if you wanted to have like a subsection of this, I would say to be able to do what I did more intently is when you're trying to get into a industry, let's just put it like that, figure out your specific thing that interests you, that is valuable to the market, that is a subsection of what your offer is. For me, my accidental stumbling into something was bulk files. We have a lot more like content, which by the way, if anyone like is like, I maybe should revive that content because they're still doing a lot in bulk files. But when I was getting into the space, they say like everything's on YouTube, right? Like everything's on YouTube. You can just go YouTube it and you'll find a tutorial. I tried that with bulk files. There was one guy who did a slight little bit of a walkthrough and then was like, oh no, don't worry about this. It's too complicated. Like, don't worry. And oh my gosh, it pissed me off. And I was like, no, please give me the step-by-step, give me the learnings, give me the specifics. I didn't see that content in the market. And so I built it. And that was kind of, if you want to say my in, is that I had a very narrow, if you think about advertising, you think about selling on Amazon, then you think about Amazon advertising, and then leveraging bulk files to manage Amazon advertising. That's a very specific subsection that I could become the expert in. And so I did. And so I would get people like tagging me in posts. Oh, Elizabeth does that. Oh, Elizabeth does that. I still get tagged in posts sometimes, or ask questions, or people reach out to me about bulk file specific things because I know it really well. I can be that very specific area matter expert. Now, that's not saying I can't talk about other things. Now I talk about all of advertising, but that's a very narrow subsection. So I would say that accidentally stumbling onto that fact, which again, hopefully you can take this advice and use it more intentionally. And then I would say the other thing, this is a personal thing for me, but has been just doing our absolute best to have not be okay with phoning it in when it comes to serving clients. That is just something for me. I could not sleep at night if I didn't know we did everything in our absolute power to serve someone to the best of our abilities. Not just for their advertising, but also like making sure that we're focused on them from like a business perspective. I think that those two things, like expertise and then like actually caring, have been a little bit of, if you could say, like secret sauce into what I'm doing. Again, that's how I'm choosing to build. That's how we're doing it. I'm not saying that's the only way to do it, but in terms of like what we've done to found success, and then just build a group of individuals who are bring the same level of execution as well as the same level of just like internalized quality to it. So you got to make sure you work with people who exemplify the same qualities that you're looking to build in the business is the most important thing. Have you worked on ANC audiences? Is there any online courses for getting experience in it? No, I don't know of any online courses. I do know that Monster from, I'm not going to remember the agency name specifically, but he puts a lot of content on YouTube. So there is that. It's relatively new. In terms of have we worked with ANC audiences? Yes. There are a lot of insights. My recommendation when it comes to AMC audiences is that if you go in, and honestly, this is how I learn myself. I would recommend going into it with like, this is a problem that I'm trying to solve. This is a thing that I'm looking to understand. This is an audience that I think would make sense to target, and then go try and build the audiences around those things. Because the thing with AMC is like, yes, it's super powerful, but the amount of things and the amount of incrementality you can have when it comes to AMC is like astronomical. You will get lost so fast. Trust me, I speak from experience. So I would say, when going into it, I would say one, understand, try and conceptualize like the tangible thing that you are trying to tackle and try and execute on it. That will narrow down and help you really focus on it and like, how do I achieve this? The second thing is understand that there are two things that you can really do with AMC. Number one is you can use it for analysis, and number two is you can use it for targeting. So like, understand, am I trying to do an analysis? I mean, a great example would be like, hey, let's do an analysis and then let's use this in our targeting, right? Would be fantastic way of like going about it. And then the third maybe like tip I would give you is, if you are going into any like any new tool, if Amazon has pre-built some like ideas or templates, which they have with AMC, if you go in there into the AMC console, you can see like a lot of like examples or pre-built audiences, or they'll give you some templates. I would recommend going through those templates and just like understand, okay, what are the building blocks? What are the pieces? What are the things that that you can use in these audiences? And then sort of either just look at the data that Amazon kind of like gives you in these pre-built audiences, or you can say, okay, I know that I can target, because in this pre-built audiences, I can target customers that have like this specific attribute, but then, oh, they allow us to layer on interactions with ads. And you can start like understanding the building blocks of how you can segment an audience would probably be the best way. I don't know if that's the best way to learn. I personally, again, this is just a personal learning, I don't tend to learn well if it's through a course. Now, there's some people who they're like, hey, just give me a course. I just want to do this step by step. Just tell me what to do. I don't learn the best that way, which again, context for the advice that I'm giving you right now. My best learning is when I can immediately get like a hands-on, okay, this is the thing that I'm trying to achieve. And again, for me, it's not like, what are the possibilities? It's like, all right, this is the thing that I'm trying to achieve. What are the tools at my disposal? Oh, it's this new tool. Okay, now let me try and take that tool and apply it to what it is that I'm trying to achieve. And I've found for me, that's like the biggest shortcut to learning. But again, that's for me. So, hey Elizabeth, how are you doing? I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. I was wondering if we have something which we could find the organic ranking of product daily for a number of keywords. The answer is find the organic ranking of a product daily for a number of, yes, there is plenty of tools. Sorry, I read this wrong. The classic OG is Helium-10 is a really classic one. There's also Jungle Scout that you could find the organic ranking and build that out. If you're using Data Dive, they have, I believe it's called Rank Radar. There is a possibility, you can use that. The one that we are using right now, I do highly recommend them. I find them economical, and then they have some really interesting betas that they're working on and some ways that like fit within our methodology of working. It's called Data Rova, and so that would be another top recommendation for keyword ranking tracking. But I would say yes, especially if you're doing any kind of organic ranking push for your advertising, I would absolutely want to be tracking our organic ranking. Do DSP ads help increase conversion rate for low selling products, or is it helpful mostly for top selling products? Great question. So DSP is not necessarily going to help you increase conversion rate. So what DSP does is it allows you to advertise more specifically to audiences. So AMC audiences can be used in sponsored product ads, which is good. You only have a limited amount of like segmentation and how you can really test those or what controls you have over those for right now. But with DSP, you could say, hey, I want to like segment these audiences. You can exclude audiences. There's a whole wide world of like segmentations when it comes to audiences. So how DSP is best used is when you can fully like understand like, okay, I want to go after this audience. But the thing is that audience typically is going to be surfing or living not specifically on the Amazon platform, which means that the conversion rates on DSP ads are typically much lower. Oftentimes, ROAS is also lower when it comes to DSP ads. Now, they're a fantastic tool for expansion, and one that if you do have a really solid brand and you're looking to really expand your footprint, if you are thinking about potentially leveraging offsite traffic, DSP is going to be perform much better, even typically speaking, than like meta ads or other external traffic sources. Again, because of the segmentation and how much trust the Amazon platform has when it comes to like products converting. Now, you might have seen some screenshots of brands who have like crazy high ROAS and people seeing like DSP gets this fantastic performance and like, oh my gosh, this is like amazing. Those screenshots are typically if they're doing retargeting ads, which means somebody like saw the product, they didn't end up purchasing the product, and so we're bringing them back to ideally or surfacing the product to them, ideally for them to be able to come back and make a purchase. Now, cross-selling and retargeting ads, those you can use some level of not retargeting. Retargeting if you add audiences into it, but you can add retargeting ads with sponsored display ads, and you can do say cross sells with sponsored product ads and sponsored display ads. That being said, you don't have as much control or as much segmentation in those like traditional sponsored ad types as you would in DSP. So DSP, if you really want to get into retargeting, will be your best bet and lever. That being said, like we had one brand on the Amazon platform and their sponsored ads, we were running like a 4 ROAS, which is still pretty good. When we ran DSP and we did retargeting ads, they got like a 20 ROAS. Like bananas, right? But if you think about it, it's because we're retargeting ads. We're not, although we did have some new to brand traffic in that, it was mostly retargeting ads. So like, we told the brand, we're like, okay, these numbers look fantastic. Take them with a grain of salt. We're not going to intentionally push more ad dollars here because this is not really like a brand growth lever, right? So I would say it's mainly for it is mainly for top selling products or brands where like products that just make more sense to invest that kind of like long-term growth strategy and upper funnel tactics into. It's not going to be a fix if you have a lower conversion rate. I'm curious about your approach to managing large number of SKUs. Do you find it more efficient to optimize them through bulk files, or do you prefer campaign level adjustments or manual optimization? Fantastic question. So when you say like prefer campaign level adjustments, yes, the more incremental you can get into how you are adjusting or how you're setting up your adjustments for a particular product is where you are going to get the biggest bang for your buck. Now, what I will tell you is that I can tell you how we do it, and we can do it this way because we built systems. So essentially what we do is we analyze the entire catalog every single week to identify. We look at the overall account. We look at, is the account on track to hit goals? Is the account not on track to hit goals? If it's on track to hit goals, then what we're doing is we're simply looking at where can we double down, where do we make sure that we keep focus. And then if it's not on track to hit goals, then we absolutely have to be like, okay, what goals are not on track? Is it a sales thing? Is it an efficiency thing? And then where do we need to double down on to like fix that to make sure that the account is driving towards goals, right? So that's a strategy on the account level. This is done weekly, and we look at it on, monthly. So are we going to hit the goals for this month? And that starts week 1. And then what we do is we then assess the entire catalog, because the sum total of how that account is doing is how each individual product is doing. And then we will look at the entire catalog and say, okay, which of these products are on track? Which of these products are under track? Do we have a launch that we need to push? Are there some products that had, just higher total A costs that we need to get more efficiencies for, et cetera, et cetera? We're going to make our hit list for the individual products. From there, we will then look at, okay, what is our hit list in terms of products? And then what is the ad strategy for these, or not the ad strategy, what is the account structure for these particular products? Again, how we can look at it this way is because we have reports that will allow us to say, are we on track to hit goals? This is something we look at a team every single week. We have reports that we can look at the entire catalog and say, what is above, what is below, what are we doing with this, right? We have reports that allow us to quickly figure out what is the campaign structure for this specific product, right? Could you do this manually? Yes. Is it going to be a pain in the butt? Yes. Then from there, what you're going to want to do is you have your regular optimization cadence. So what our optimizations allow us to do, this is both on a bid level, this is on a budget level, and placement percentage level. We have a system that allow us to, like, obviously we have our overall account kind of like catch-all buckets, which also include, by the way, an additional settings. This is something we rolled out the end of last year. Super bullishly excited for this. We actually can set different goals for branded terms, regardless if they live inside a branded or a non-branded campaign. Like, game changer. So we have different levels of segmentation of how our optimizations behave. Example of this is I don't want to have the same ACoS target for my ranking campaigns as I have for my branded campaigns, right? So this whole system kind of works in a circular feedback loop. So it's going, okay, are we hitting goals, assessment, campaign structure? Then we identify what in that campaign structure. Example is, okay, in this campaign structure for this one product that we have higher total ACoS on, and so we need to get more efficient. We have 2 campaigns that are running higher than the targets, and we really just need to get more efficient with these. And so what we can do is that the feedback loop then takes those campaigns. They could be individual targets. It could be like an entire portfolio, doesn't matter. We can input that into our adjustment system and say, okay, what are the individual parameters or ACoS targets, or maybe we need to push that we need to put on these specific things, again, because it's for the product we've identified that has an issue, because we identify that that product is creating issues at the account level. So you can easily scale up and scale down, say, okay, account, is this working? Scale down to a lower level, fix those things, look at the performance the next week. Has us making those micro adjustments fix the trends that we need to? Yes or no? Okay, let's again go down that list. So it becomes a optimization feedback loop based on brand goals, if that makes sense. And those can be, so it can be powered through bulk files. Originally, that's where our optimization system was built off of. It's built off of bulk files. Because bulk files take so freaking long to generate these days, like I'm like hours to generate for larger accounts, then we've built an AI integrated platform. Again, it's an internal platform. I don't really intend to sell it. Enterprise software is like a whole thing, but it is what it's allowing us to get like insane results for our clients. Good question. How do you overcome the fear of creating content? You do it scared. You do it terrified. You do it shaking in your freaking boots. The first time I did this live, I was like, nobody's going to freaking show up. Who wants to listen to me talk about Amazon ads? Like, self-doubt is real. It's real, bro. It is real. I would say the first podcast that I went on, I was literally shaking in my skin and sweating like a pig. Like, I was so freaking nervous. You do it scared. You do it scared. That's the answer. Maybe that's not great. Hope said, what type of channel is this? This is a channel for about Amazon advertising. We're an agency, so like you can tell I'm getting like agency and content questions, which if I can answer them, I'll pull them up. But the goal of this is to give you answers to whatever like Amazon ad issues that you're dealing with in your account, or just general questions. So if you have any questions regarding like, hey, is there a specific match type, campaign launches, maybe sponsor brands video, which by the way, I got validation on we have a framework that we use for our sponsor brands video. We call it the 4x15 framework. And I put a snazzy name on it. I had a brand come to me and they actually followed that framework and got double the click-through rate and double the conversion rate on their sponsor brands video just by following our framework, which I was like, oh my gosh, that's the most amazing thing I've ever heard. So like, that's my goal of content. Like, that is my favorite thing in the world, is like when I can put out like, okay, here's something that I know works, which again is the entire goal of this show. Here is what I know works. And then when I get the feedback like, hey, I tried what you said and it worked. Like, I've had people be like, oh my gosh, I asked a question on the show and then I did what you said and like I totally cost dropped 2 points. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that is like, that makes my day. Totally. So that's like type of channel goal of the show is like, hey, throw an Amazon ad question at us. I want to help you perform at the best that I possibly can. Yeah. Say Amazon ads. Yeah. So yeah, again, getting questions on content, which again, I don't mind depends on how many questions we have, but if I can give somebody answers to help them along their journey with maybe their freelance careers, sometimes if time permitting, I'll pull those up. What advice do you have for brands that is limited keywords to target and looking to scale in 2026? Good question. I would say make sure that you are using all levels of the funnel is the big thing. So if you have limited keywords that you can target, look at the ways that you are targeting it. So the first one obviously would be like the search page, which is sponsored product ads. But can you run a broad match of that same keyword and like try and get some long tail keywords? Another fantastic but overlooked targeting strategy in these sort of limited keyword markets is going to be product targeting. So are you making sure that you're targeting products that are high ranked on those key search terms? Like, that's a huge one. You can also use sponsored display ads to target those products as well. Are you using sponsored brand ads? If you have a headline ad, fantastic. Are you using video assets? Do you have a sponsor brands video? That takes up a huge amount of real estate on those limited, on those categories that have limited availability in terms of search terms. Sometimes category targeting can work in these ones, just kind of like find potential. The other thing that you do kind of have to recognize, and sometimes this is kind of a hard pill to swallow, is that if there is limited keywords that you can target, sometimes these can get crazy competitive, because if you think about it, if there's like 3 keywords that really only have any volume, then all of your competitors have to target those 3 keywords. And so oftentimes the cost per click just like go up and up and up, which is kind of sad, but it happens. And then also, if there's only so much search volume happening in this niche, then that means that there's only so many customers or shoppers that are looking for that specific product. So when you think about it like that, that means there's kind of an upper bounds or a limit to how much you can scale a product like that, if that makes sense. So one, I would just say make sure that you kind of covered all aspects of the funnel. Make sure that you have auto and broad match on, just to see if you can like find any other subsections. Sometimes those will also find like what I call like adjacent keywords, or keywords that you hadn't really thought of but might convert for your product. So I would say you need to sometimes start looking at, I don't know if you say like the outer layers, or different kind of adjacent ways for that particular category. But also just kind of recognize that there may be a limit to how much you can possibly scale. So honestly, the name of the game, I know this is not specifically ads related, but the name of the game when it comes to scaling, like scaling a brand or scaling an account, is going to be launching additional products. You're not going to be able to feed off of the same products forever and ever. It just, Amazon doesn't work like that. You might have products that works for years and years, but you need to keep like kind of upping your game. And on that note, let me pull up. So we are running this Seller Strategy Summit, by the way. This is January 27th to 29th. There is tickets because I did get to, there's a little over like I think 20 speakers. One of the things that some speakers like Isabella Ritz, who is like a expert when it comes to product research, like she did a whole like walkthrough when it comes to like using AI and different tools to find additional products. So really, if you're looking to scale in 2026, I would say, again, cost, yes, there's tickets, but it's like $9, super cheap. You can get access to like all of these expert speakers, and there's some really, I mean, I've been recording for this, so there's like some fantastic insights. I'll definitely drop the link to this into the chat if anybody has wants to attend or just wants to take a look at it, which, by the way, if you are on LinkedIn, you might have to reach out to me because it won't post the link on LinkedIn. But I do highly recommend, if that's something you're looking like, hey, I want to scale, that would be a good one. Jason's asking, do you work with new sellers or just established ones? That's a great question. It depends on what you're defining as a new seller. So one of the things that we have defined is if you have a product that has found some level of product market fit. Now, sometimes that's on D2C. So there are some brands that we do work with that's like, hey, they're newer to Amazon, but they've been on D2C and they really just have an established product. That's where we fit in, because as you can tell with like how many nuances and things that I talk about, or like the systems that we have, those are really geared towards like diving in and doubling down. And yes, there's tweaks and there's always things to do, but it's really, we really look at brands who are in a position or really ready to scale. If you haven't quite figured out if you can afford to scale, what that scale looks like, you're still like battling it out with conversion rate. Now, don't get me wrong. If you have like a larger catalog, there's going to be some winners and there's going to be some in the middle that like don't work as well. So like you do look for scale within the existing catalog. But if there's like, say, 1 or 2 products, we can still work with that. But the caveat there would be like, do you have like 1 or 2 products that are like clear winners, again, have achieved a product market fit that we're like, all right, awesome. let's work. And, sometimes you have to get efficiency before you can scale, but someone who's at the level of, again, not like beginner, if that makes sense. Although everybody's going to start somewhere. So my goal with this show is like, if you are at that stage, again, if it just doesn't make sense to work with us at this particular stage, completely fine. Please show up, ask me all of the questions. I want to be as helpful as I possibly can. And then if you are like, I really do need somebody to help me out with this, it's just, we're not a good fit. I do have other people who they're amazing at what they do. And they do work with more like, say, beginner brands or very, very new brands, and more than happy to make a connection if that's helpful. Any simple ad strategy that's been working currently? If I had to simplify ad strategy, like really, really simplify it, I would say this was a thesis that we started kind of developing probably about 3 years ago. And then the more we get into it, the more competitive Amazon gets, the more just like cutthroat some of the businesses. I am doubling, tripling down and planting my flag on this strategy, which is you need to have broader reach, cheaper traffic, meaning like broad match, phrase match, auto campaigns. Now you need to have this designated as cheaper traffic. I've also seen those kind of broader reach, more, I hesitate to call them discovery campaigns because I do see them as like cheap traffic sources. I don't just say like, oh, these are only good for discovery. They're good for cheap traffic, but you have to keep that traffic cheap. Case in point, I audited a brand and I was looking at it and I'm like, why are your auto campaign CPCs like only 10 cents less than your exact match ranking campaign CPCs? Like their CPCs were the same across all match types across the board. I'm like, make it make sense. Like if I have really aggressive bids or aggressive placement percentages on my more broader cheap traffic sources, those will no longer be cheap traffic sources. So again, that is actually baked into our algorithm to like restrict and keep down those costs. But on the flip side, if you only go, okay, all I need is low ACoS. I just want super cheap clicks. I can't afford anything more. And you don't have some strategies that are focused in on ranking or market share or like really growth expansion. And for those, you are going to need to spend more. You might have to target top of search. You might have to go after more competitive keywords. Your cost per clicks will be high. Now you want to maximize conversion rate here, but it's going to cost more. And so from that aspect, you need both trees. I have seen brands over the years where like all they have is the exact match only ranking hyper growth strategies. And I've seen brands where all they have is like cheap traffic. And what I will say is if you are optimizing your ranking and your market focus campaigns with the idea of low cost traffic, and you're like, all I care about ACoS, you will destroy your account. You will destroy your account. I audited a brand for a client who was thinking about potentially purchasing the brand. That brand, all they did was focus on ACoS. They took their ACoS year over year from a 35 to a 25%. The crazy thing was, and then again, this is over the course of a year. The crazy thing was their total sales decreased by 40%, and their total ACoS was only 1 point lower than it was the prior year. So by only focusing in on ACoS and by not protecting those ranking campaigns and by not protecting the market share expansion campaigns, they just like cut off their sale. Like they cut off to the point where they're like, we're going out of business. We're just going to try and like liquidate our account because we can't figure it out. Right. That was like, I audited it and I told the brand and I was like, look, I rarely say like there's always like inventory issues or other issues that brands come across. So it's very rarely where I can confidently say like, this is 100% only the ad strategy that destroyed this account. However, in that particular account, it was 100% the ad strategy that destroyed the account. So you need to protect those campaigns and not be like, oh, I just need cheap clicks. But again, on the flip side, I have seen it time and time again where if you have like those cheap cost, you're looking at like, long tail auto campaigns, all those are great strategies. If those start to shift over and if you try and scale those campaigns, you will also destroy an account. So if you need to have those two distinct strategies running in parallel for products, for all winning products in the account, if that makes sense. But that would be my best tip in terms of like overall strategy. New sellers struggling, a cost is 100%. Getting clicks, but conversion rate is low, just 9 reviews. Broad and auto work best. Exact getting no traction. High CPCs, $3 to $7. Sports product at $9.99. Any thoughts with ads? Been using $1 bid with high top of search and ROAS. If it's not high enough, my impressions go away. If I try to suggest a bid and no placement percentage, all I get is product page impressions. Okay. It sounds like two things. One, you're getting into a really competitive category. My question would be when it comes to you have 99, almost $100 product, your conversion rate is going to be lower. That's pretty typical. Depending on what kind of reviews you had, you said you have 9 reviews right now. Are those just like, because you have, what is it, the people who actually leave a review, and then you have people who leave a rating where it's just a star rating. I guess my question would be like, do you have any context within the reviews to help somebody understand like how the product works, if it's any good? I don't know, but that would kind of change your conversion rates a little bit. I would say my biggest tips when looking at higher priced items is to evaluate a longer time frame, because typically what happens, and your conversion rates are lower and you're getting some clicks, but it's not high impressions. But oftentimes what you'll see, because the price point is higher, you'll have like horrible ACOS, and then one day it'll be good, and then it'll be horrible, and then one day it'll be good. So my guess is you probably have some, if your averages are like 100 or over 100, you probably might have some days where it's like not too bad, and then you have other days where it's like bananas, like 200% or more, and that averages out to about 100%. So I would say you want to stretch out the time horizon to sort of smooth out that inconsistency in the data. In terms of recommendations, I rarely see, to be honest, high price items. Again, it depends on, is $100 high in this specific category and what you're trying to go after, or is $100 like relatively low in this category? If you're trying to sell into a really low cost category, but you're coming in with like $100 product, you probably don't want to be going after the top major keywords right now. And then the other thing that I would say is typically for higher price items, I rarely see top of search work really well. I don't know if you have it, like if you have the data to say differently that top of search converts the best, then I would say go after that. But that being said, if you don't have the data to say you convert much higher on top of search, I wouldn't try pushing top of search just because that's quote ranking what you need to do for rankings. I would see like, where do I actually convert best? I'm assuming product pages just don't convert, which is why you have an issue with that. But I would look at the data there. Oftentimes what I see is that rest of search tends to work the best. And then the other thing is, I'm assuming if you're saying broad and auto work best, that you're identifying the search terms that are working within broad and auto, and then trying to roll that out to an exact match. That would be my assumption. If you're not doing that, you should totally do that. I think what I would say is right now you're dealing with a low data. These are rough. Right now what you're doing is you're doing two things in opposition. Like you have two issues in the account that are forces that to fix them, they work in opposition. So the first one is you have a low data problem. So when you have a low data problem, what do? You work at increasing your bids. You try and do things to push impressions so you can get a higher volume of data so you can make better decisions and better determinations. But that is in direct opposition of what you said is you have a high ACoS problem. And to fix a high ACoS problem, what do? You lower your bids, you adjust placement percentages, potentially look at budget optimization, but those two things are in opposition to each other. So depending on how much budget, like testing budgets you have, and it also depends on what timelines you're comfortable with. I would say you probably have to stretch out your timelines in terms of expectations, meaning understand that this is not going to happen overnight. So your goal right now is to figure out, is there anywhere in the account from a ranking perspective that I can double down on? Now, I didn't hear you mention phrase match. Sometimes what I've seen is that if something doesn't work in exact match, you can try it in phrase match, and sometimes that will give you a little bit of traction. The other thing that I would say is I have seen sometimes in these categories where the CPCs are just crazy high and we're like, we can't really push the CPCs, but then we also are not really generating the impressions. So like, I can't push it up, but I gotta, that kind of flip flop. I have seen that using dynamic up and down sometimes can be really advantageous in these specific categories. So recap in a nutshell, I would say if you're not, assess what you're doing in broad and auto that's working, and then try and see if you can put that into the exact match. Again, I'm assuming you're already doing that, but just worth mentioning for those if you're not. Don't focus on top of search placement and hyper focus on placement percentages if you don't have the data to support that is where you convert the highest. If it is, by all means, my guess is not. Don't discount rest of search. See if you can test those in a phrase match. And then if you can't get traction, test with dynamic up and down bidding to see if you can get any more traction there. Yeah, okay, thanks. It was a bit raw with the question, but I appreciate it. Yeah, hopefully it was helpful. I know I kind of rambled on for a little bit with that answer, but that's my best advice to you on that. I will be honest with you. You're in one of those like catch-22 scenarios that I'm not going to BS you. They're kind of a little bit difficult, but I would say you can get through them. Again, I would recommend just like stretching out your expectations when it comes to time horizon, if that makes sense. So with that, again, if anyone has any questions, or which, by the way, if anyone's trying to figure out how to double down on something, I don't know if you've seen, but I did build we give away like our audit sheet. We have done that for a long time. At one point, I'm like, hey, I've built this spreadsheet and it gives you this most amazing audit ever. And then sometimes the things break. It is built off of a bulk file. So I also built this other app, which is at junglr.com/org. If anyone is interested, there is a way to quickly audit your brand. If you want to know, like, what do I double down on? And I'm working on it. I have a billion things on my plate, but I am working on getting some more insights on like a product level as well. How do you prepare a brand for an exit within the next 6 months? From an ads perspective, don't make knee-jerk reactions. That is what I will say. There are some brands I have seen where they like freak out about profitability because they're like, oh no, I need to be profitable. And then they'll pull back on ads and like everything tanks and then everything is way worse than it was before. Bananas. I've had that before. I would say your best bet is to do for the next 6 months, like steady as she goes. Try to do incremental improvements, but don't rock the boat too much. That's the biggest tip of my advice. Like if you have ideally, and when you're thinking about exiting over a 6-month period, like ideally you should have been thinking about the exit 2 years ago. So the biggest thing that, from my understanding, I'm not an area expert here. Honestly, I think my biggest tip would be talk to an area expert who has a lot of expertise when it comes to helping brands exit and get best multiples here. Depends on the size of the brand. Like if you're a smaller brand, then maybe it's not worth it to pay it for a consultant. But I will say if you are a large brand and you're a bit unsure, a good consultant will be worth their weight in gold, and allow you to, again, negotiate better deals and help you really understand what it is that somebody who's looking to buy a brand is interested in. However, brands want to see one thing is, do you have a specific, again, from all of my talking with these consultants and gathering the information from them, and also working with some of brands who have exited, I would say on the ad side, again, the consistency. Don't be crazy. Don't go turn a whole bunch of stuff off because I need to show profitability. Incremental improvements, fantastic. Knee-jerk reactions will screw you up in the evaluations. Then from the just like regular, I mean, just a typical, like, what do you do when you sell? And like, you got to have your P&L. You got to make sure that everything is buttoned up. You want to have your information. You want to have, like if you can put together like one pagers on the brand or a brief outline. I don't know where you are in the selling process, but you want to start thinking through, okay, what is all the information that a potential buyer is going to want? How do I you want to show that you actually make profits, and then you can show steady growth in profits and or ideally sales over time. They want to know that you have a good moat. So like, did you just have a Me Too product that you just left out that a Chinese competitor is going to come in and just take everything over the next little bit? Or have you really like been able to build a product that withstand this test of time, that you can show steady incremental growth and profitable growth over time? Like, just those are the things that like you can kind of reverse engineer it. Like, okay, if my brand was the most attractive brand, if I was coming into this brand today, like what would I want to know about it to be confident that this is a really strong account? That's kind of again, there's a lot of free content on YouTube actually. So there's a lot of brand or like, consultants that work with brands to exit that do, and I can't think of one for the life of me off the top of my head. But I would look up like exiting brands, or I would research the crap out of people who have already gone through the process. And then that will give you a good understanding of like, okay, you'll get a bunch of tidbits. So I would say like, go just immerse yourself in like, okay, what needs to happen? What do they need to know? And then just work right now in getting your ducks in a row in terms of clean books, documentation, all of the information. And then you also want to have like a steady as she grows growth and profitability trajectory. I'm assuming that you're just tired and you're exiting because you want to get into another game or you have something else going on or whatever. That's assuming that you have so you want to show steady growth in sales and profitability as you grow. If you are like, I'm not profitable and losing money for years, all of this stuff, is like an issue, you're not going to be able to like fix it over 6 months, like turn the brand around in 6 months and then have that let you get like, it would be better than if, to prove that you could turn it around versus like if you had been in decline. But that's not going to make up for like years and years of decline. So the best brands that exit for the highest multiples are the ones, again, that are solid, that they can show a really good, strong trajectory, because people who are purchasing will take a look at, kind of like, what's the past performance? What is the past history? And then they can use that to project into the future. So if you don't have a really good, strong history of that, one, I guess work on that ASAP. But then two, ideally, if you have a strong history, I would just say like, don't rock the boat. Keep on keeping on, incremental improvements, and then just get all your ducks in a row in terms of the documentation. So hopefully that was helpful. This has been another fantastic live. I appreciate everyone showing up. This is always my favorite time of the week. So again, this is a place where you can get answers to your most pressing Amazon ad questions. You saw today, people talked about exiting, some very specific strategic questions around advertising, some more broader questions. That is what we do here every week. And so feel free to tune in same time, same place next week. Tell your friends. And we will get you more answers to your most pressing Amazon advertising questions. You guys have been absolutely amazing, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. And that wraps up this episode of the Ask Junglr Amazon Advertising Podcast. I hope you found these insights and strategies helpful in your Amazon PPC journey. Remember, if you have a burning Amazon ad question that you'd like answers to, head over to junglr.com/live to join our next live Q&A session. Until next time, keep optimizing those ads and stay hungry.